Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the GEB America podcast. I'm your host this week, David Groves, and we are so excited to welcome in a singer, songwriter, producer, and SoCal girl. Dawn Jordan joins us today on the podcast. Hey, Dawn. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the speakers and not necessarily those of GEB America, Oral Roberts University, or their employees. This program is not intended to offer investment, financial, medical, legal, or any other advice. Viewers should consult a subject matter professional regarding any such matters.
Hi, David. So great to be here.
Thank you. I know that you are busy because there's this little thing you're working on called an album, and I know you've had a lot of action with that, busy mix downs, all these things, and that's really exciting. We want to talk about that today for sure.
Well, I'm so excited, and you are the first ever to talk about it with me on a podcast.
That's so awesome.
I'm excited.
Well, you know what? I'm honored, and we're just going to jump right in because I think that you have such an interesting story. Actually, there's lots of stories in there, but start first of all. So you have, for the large part of your career, you've been involved in the commercial music industry. So when people hear music on their favorite sitcom or favorite series on Netflix or whatever, the music that you hear with or without vocals has to be made by somebody. And producers can't just grab anything. So you've been involved with it. So talk a little bit about what you've kind of where that started. And then we'll go way back, as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually one of the first in like singing to get into sync licensing placement. And I had a friend that was, starting to get into that. And he was like, hey, let's write some songs and you can actually do really well. So we did it. And every song that we did got picked up and got used multiple times. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And, you get that mailbox money, which is nice. That just shows up. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. And also, you get to explore different genres and different lyrics and even singing style, depending on what you're writing for. So a lot of my songs I've either written them and then they were picked up for sync licensing placements for film and TV, or they will give me a scene or a scenario and say, hey, I need you to write, a 30-second or a minute long, whatever, here's the scene, and then we go in and create. So I've done that. Even like kids songs, Nickelodeon was like, I need a kids dance song. So on vacation, I'm like, working with my producer and just creating. Yeah. So
very cool. Really fun. So I do know that you started as an actress way back in the day.
Yes.
And then, so talk a little bit about that, because you haven't just always done music, you've been an artist.
Absolutely. Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to start before diapers.
Yeah,
and that can kind of lead into it, because
absolutely.
When I look back,
let's go way back.
Way back.
Let's do it.
When I step back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, God, like you really had your hand in every single moment of my life that has led me to this moment right here, which is crazy and awesome, of course, because God has just like incredible ways of doing his thing.
He does.
So I grew up in Riverside, and my mom was a single parent of 4 kids when she got pregnant to me. And so I was the youngest of 5. And while my mom was deciding if she was going to keep me or not, because I was actually born out of wedlock, she stayed up all night praying and trying to decide. My biological father, who I'd never met, didn't want her to keep the baby. And she's always been a Christian, so she was struggling with that. And so she stayed up, prayed until the sun came up. And she said, you know what? This baby is, it's going to be a new beginning, and I'm going to name her Dawn. So that's how I got the name Dawn. Then while she was pregnant with me, somebody prophesied over my life and said, this baby is going to be a light to the world. And my mom told me that from a very young age. And that was something that I not only tied to my name, Dawn, being a light, but to have that spoken over me before I was even born. I took that very seriously in every part of my life.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of start of God putting that vision of being a light to the world. And so my mom was a single mom. Now she had 5 kids, and by a miracle, she always made it a point to get us to church. Even if she had to drive an hour away to get there. Because we lived in Riverside for a while, and then we moved to High Desert, and that was like an hour drive. Sometimes an hour. Anyway, not the point. So the church that I grew up in was Harvest Christian Fellowship with Greg Laurie. And that's really what got my start in performing. So they have a kids singing group that travels all over the place and does the kids crusades, and I auditioned for that and became a part of it. So through that, I was performing in church and going on tour and doing the Harvest Kids Crusades.
Oh,
and
awesome.
During that Harvest Crusade, I ended up getting a lead role and got discovered to be on a Canoe Kids TV show called Colby's Clubhouse on TBN. And so I got casted on that show, and that is also what, got me used to being on camera and doing voiceovers and all the things, right? So that is, that's how I landed in the entertainment world. And when I got into high school, I was always the girl that was standing with the guys. I'm a guy's girl, so I'd always be with the boys singing, and we'd harmonize at lunchtime. And I started writing songs and getting in the studio, and I realized, wow, I really want to do this, and maybe I'll be a light to the world in the secular industry. That seems right. And so I was having fun, and there was a lot of interesting situations that, as being a female in a male dominated industry, there were a lot of different moments at a young age that were kind of scary then, but God protected me. God really protected me throughout my entire journey. So after high school, I decided to move to LA. I was going to become a singer. I spent time, auditioned for a girl group, got in a girl group, ended up finding great music mentors. One of them, which was Mr. Galvin from Jodeci. So he taught me a lot about big harmonies and gospel and all of these different artists that I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I always gravitate to a wide variety of music.
Yeah.
But he really pushed me vocally. I just fell in love with doing music, and then just met people and started doing sync licensing placement. And then I was like, wow, I have quite a few songs that have done pretty well. Maybe I should start performing these things. So I put together a band, started touring all over the world. Ended up going to my last tour was 5 different countries with Armed Forces Entertainment. So giving back to our military troops.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And I came back from that last tour, and I met somebody who was building a catalog of music. But this was crazy genres that I had never even thought I would write in, like metal or reggae, and so it was really fun, but it pushed me not only lyrically, but vocally. And after I finished, we actually did 11 albums in under 2 years.
Wow.
And
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I'm kind of a weirdo. I am very creative, but I'm also, I like to be very organized and, spreadsheets and stuff like that. And he saw my music mentor, and boss at the time, saw that and was like, you'd be really great at running operations. It's like, what's that? He's like, don't worry, I'll teach you. I was like, perfect. So I ended up running operations for his label, and learning so much about the business side, not just the creative.
Yeah.
And that was when God laid it on my heart. I want you to use your gifts and talents and everything that you've learned in the music industry, and I want you to apply it, to the kingdom. So I think there's a lot of different stories within that, but that's kind of the quick version. But it's
tell me about the because we were talking off camera a minute ago you felt like God showed you were supposed to do this, kingdom minded, do something different and let it benefit the kingdom. And you said that you were like, I don't know that I can do that because I've never led worship.
Yes. So very interesting. After my last tour, I was kind of deciding on what I was going to do. And I would always joke around, the music industry gets really tough. And I'd be like, I'm going to retire. I'm done with music. And God would always have a way of booking another show or booking a tour. Like, yeah, right. You'll be done when I say you're done. And so I was doing some writing, and my mom was actually hit by a drunk driver Mother's Day 2019. And that was a moment in my life where nothing mattered except for her getting well. And it really stripped me to my core.
Yeah.
And it always reminds you, like, what is actually important? Is it the likes? Is it the numbers? Is it this? No, it's family, right?
Yeah.
So, for 2 years, I just was going to the hospital. My mom lived, by the way, and had to learn how to walk again.
So
and
she was in for that long.
She was in ICU for a few months, and then she had to go into a rehab facility for a few months. And then, it was such a long process, but I completely stopped doing music for 2 years. And, I was going through some things in my garage, and I found a box of songs that I wrote and recordings, and I was sitting there listening to it, and I just started crying. And I even get like a little choked up when I talk about it, because it really was such a pivotal moment. I started crying, and my now husband walked in the room and was like, whoa, what's going on? You're crying. Like,
what can I do?
What can I do? Like, what is this? And he's like, what's wrong? And I said, I just miss doing music so much. Like, that was my identity. And I came to this place where I said, I don't even have to be the person on stage. Like, I just don't want to let these gifts and talents that God has given me over the years go to waste. Mm-hmm. Like, I just want to, I don't know, however I can use them. Like, I just want to use them. I don't have to be the person on stage. And that was a big moment, because that is what led me into doing the 11 different albums, and God really preparing my heart, where I was actually kind of enjoying not being on stage and not being the front person and doing the interviews and all that stuff. I was like, this is kind of nice in the back. But, I was like, Lord, if you want me to do music for the kingdom, what does that even mean? And it was incredible, because God placed me, I'm such a visual, that God placed me in these certain areas to, like, let me show you what that means. Let me show you what that's going to look like. Let me show you the sound. And as he was showing me those things, I started having convictions, because as a Christian, my whole life, I would listen to worship music, but then I was in this secular world of music where, you're listening to top 40 and you get these songs stuck in your head. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even realize what you are saying. And I don't even want to say the artist to promote it, but there was one song in particular that stood out, that was very dark and was almost like a mantra of darkness. Yeah. And my gut was like, if I'm a Christian and I'm struggling with this, how many other Christians are struggling with this, or people that are on the fence of which way to go, or people that have never even, known Jesus or thought about it, right? And that's when I felt the full conviction of, like, that's because you need to create music that it's pop, that is fun, but for the kingdom. And I was like, okay, Lord, what does that mean? Never led, I feel like there's a blueprint of what you're supposed to do in this industry. And I am a rebel. I'm just doing whatever God tells me to do. And I was like struggling for a while, because I was like, well, do I have to make worship music? Even though I've never led worship before, I don't want to be, I want to be authentic. I don't want to be fake. I don't want to pretend like I'm something I'm not.
Yeah.
And that was really conflicting for a while when I started this project. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do what God showed me, which is make Christian pop music for people to listen to Monday through Saturday.
Yeah. And I think that, we were talking about this a little bit before. That's really something that's been a little bit lost in the church world. I grew up, I'm going to date myself. I grew up listening to all the 70s and 80s stuff. And
all the good music. That's
all the good
music
yes. Yes. Everything generated back then. But, there was a lot of really great Christian music that was done that didn't get a lot of radio airplay. Some did, maybe a track or two from the album. But it really spoke to the eras and the journey of my life growing up. The same is true. And, many months ago, we had John Cooper on from Skillet, and we talked about, like their music, when they do a show, it speaks to those kids and those young adults and the different people that come. They identify with so much of that music. Worship music, I love. Number of worship artists we've had on. But there's just something about music that it's kind of like a lifeline. Yeah, exactly. And what you said about being the light earlier, because there were times where I was growing up, I remember, as a teenager or whatever, you hear a certain song, you're like, and if it's a top 40 song, it doesn't really necessarily speak to you in the same way. But sometimes there's songs that you're like, wow, that just hit me between the eyes. There was a couple of tracks that was, especially that way. And someone we interviewed a few months ago with Russ Taff from the early 80s. And so I think it's wonderful. And I definitely, I want to definitely say that I'm excited to hear your full new album. For our listeners and viewers, she was nice enough to give me a little sneak preview before we recorded so I would know a little bit. So let's talk about the songs that you've written. And, you had a really great one, Fun, Happy. Your spin on an old song from the 90s in the Christian world. This is the day that the Lord has made. Talk about the album. What's going into the songwriting?
Yeah. So my songwriting process is I love using my iPhone because I do a little freestyle, and usually it happens when I'm in the car on the 101 in LA. Like everyone gets a show on the 101 in the Borough.
Little do they know what has happened.
That's right. I do a lot of my songwriting with my voice memos, and God has given me melodies and lyrics that just come out. So it's almost like a freestyle. But one of the songs, This Is the Day, was inspired because of my grandmother. So my grandmother was a pastor, and she always was the one putting on the performances and things like that too. As a family member, you have to perform. And, she's in her 90s now. And unfortunately, she's in a memory care facility. She has dementia. And I went to go visit her. She is in Florida. And she has these moments where she'll just kind of sit there and just go and just continue to do that. And the only thing that would stop her from making those noises would be singing.
Mm.
And so when I was visiting her, I would sing with her. And This Is the Day That the Lord Has Made was the song that we would sing together. So I originally captured it on my iPhone just to have as a memory. And then when the album started coming together, I never forgot that moment. And I was like, let me do a new version, like a fun, like get the day started, let's bust out in the world. Nothing can keep me down.
Yeah.
Kind of song, but it was inspired by that moment with my grandmother singing, This is the day that the Lord has made.
That's awesome.
So
see, like I said at the beginning, there's so many little stories. I think it's great that kind of led you to this point. So how can people, before we go any further, I got a couple more questions, but how can people find you on social media and connect with you so that when the album comes out, or they can keep up with whatever your antics are on the 101?
Absolutely. So my Instagram, TikTok is Life of Dawn Official. So LIFE of Dawn, DAWN, like the sun coming up or the sun. And
it's more about the sun.
The sun, yeah. But I say that just as a joke.
It would have been, if your mom was like washing her hands and she was like, oh, I know what I'm going to name her.
Yeah, she's like, I feel so clean now.
Yes, she will help clean. She will help clean the world.
That's right.
I love that. So Life of Dawn Official.
Life of Dawn Official on Instagram and TikTok. Yeah. And if you just look up Dawn Jordan, I should come up as well.
Awesome. So the new album you're looking at in a few months, the release?
So single.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, first single will be in the next couple months. Everything's getting mixed right now. And of course, God has his own timing with everything. Mm-hmm. The album was recorded in Nashville with Grammy Award winner producer Mitch Dane. And then I decided to go with Ben Lousenbury out here in LA. Incredible, talented guy that does incredible mixes and producer. Mm-hmm. I gave the music to him to start getting mixed, and then the fires happened. So he was displaced. So that has kind of slowed down the timeline. So the first single will be coming out in the next couple months, and album to follow. I also have another song, which you haven't heard yet, but I sent it to you, so you have to listen to it after this interview, called Save Me, that has already been placed in a movie that's coming out later this year as well.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, we'll have to look for that. And I'm sure you'll put stuff on your social about that.
Absolutely.
Let people know. So it's the music. The single is going to be on all the major music streaming platforms and anywhere else.
Pray.com. Also, it's going to launch it. Very cool. And Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all the spots.
Love it. Very cool. So a couple quick questions I still have for you. And when we get to the end here, it's going to be kind of a fun thing we'd like to do. So talk to me about if you have a listener out there right now, 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy or girl, young teen, they've got a desire and a dream in their heart to do exactly what you're saying. You've been this rebel. You didn't do it the way everybody told you it had to be done, or you just felt like you followed those steps that God ordered. What would you say to them that they're like, man, I want to do something very similar to what Dawn has done?
Just start. Meet
start
people,
writing, start recording.
Start writing, start recording, start praying that God will give you the words that people need to hear. When I started this album, I was like, okay, Lord, I've written a lot of songs and I've had some ideas for Christian music, but like, what do you want me to write about? And I just prayed about that. And I'm like, how am I ever going to get to 10 songs? It seems like a lot at the moment. Mm-hmm. When I sat down to decide what songs were going to be on the album that I was going to chase, I had over 417 ideas that God had given me to chase. Then when I narrowed that down, it was over 200 songs to narrow down to 10, which is why the album has 13, because I was like, I can't cut them all. But, I would say start praying about what God wants you to say. What subjects need to be talked about? What are you afraid to say? Because if you're afraid to say it, I can guarantee other people are afraid to say it. So be bold in your faith. Be bold in your story. Be bold in going after what you want. Be bold in your faith and leaning on God for the direction and the relationships and praying for discernment to know who to align yourself with. When I started this project, I was like, okay, Lord, are you sure? He's like, yes. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yes. I was like, okay, Lord, if I'm going to do this, then I want to do it so different. I want to really be mindful about who I'm aligning myself beside.
Yeah.
And every single person that you work with, every single songwriter, producer, it's all soul ties. So be mindful of who you're choosing to work with and why, and really get to know who they are at the core. Because there's some people that will put up they might have the accolades and they might have this and they might have that and they might be huge in the space. Their heart, really get to know who they are at the core before you start working with them. And so that's why this project has, it's been almost 2 years since God put this on my heart, because I wanted to be super intentional about every single step, every single person, every single lyric, and try to use that discernment rather than speed. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I know how to go fast. Yeah. I could do a song today. We could release it tomorrow. We could call all those people, but when you're doing it for the kingdom, especially, it has to be held with so much care.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people forget that. So I would say pray, use discernment, really get to know the people that you're working with as much as you can. It's never going to be perfect. There is always going to be things that uncover, but follow your discernment and allow God to open up doors and step through them. Yeah. Literally, I'm like, Lord, you open the door, even if I'm kicking and screaming, I will step through. Because obviously you know what you're doing. I don't. So yeah, just talk about what you want to do, build relationships, build community, and amazing things can happen.
How important is it for you with this project to really express yourself authentically?
So important. If I'm not doing that, I don't want to do it at all. Period. Like, it has to be 100% authentic all the time. I mean, one of the songs called Save Me, which is going to be a single and also got placed in a movie, Where the Wind Blows, coming out later this year. But small little plug there. But that song was the hardest song for me to record. Not vocally. That's easy. That's fun. That's the fun part. But what it talks about, I mean, touching on mental health and struggles that people face, and even having to face things in from my past that I didn't know still needed healing.
Yeah.
So while I was in the studio recording Save Me, I'm like, man, if I'm having a hard time singing this, imagine people that don't have the words to say. Imagine the people that are holding this in. It's no wonder that there's a hidden pandemic happening. The suicide rates are off the charts. I mean, so I know that I'm bold. I can be a little sassy. I'm spunky, and I'm like, okay, Lord, if you made me this way, so maybe I have to be the person to also start the conversation about tough things and go there. Yeah. So it's super important for me to be authentic about where I came from, who I am, my story, and also let other people know, like, it doesn't matter what you've been through. Like, God has such an incredible plan for your life and incredible things that you can do. And God's going to use your story in an incredible way that's going to bless so many lives. And sometimes you might not understand why you're struggling or why this happened or why you experienced this, that, and the other. But man, if I didn't have all of those hard, challenging moments in my life, I mean, I wouldn't have a story to tell, to talk about, and to inspire people. So, needless to say, yes, it's very important for me to be real and authentic with who I am and who God is, and hopefully be a light to people's lives.
Well, I think that you're doing that helps people to understand that, you know what, I can do this. One of the biggest lies of the enemy is that this is unique to me. What I'm going through, no one else deals with this or handles it better or whatever. I love a quote from Pastor Sammy Rodriguez. He says, "Don't get confused by what you're going through with what you're going to."
Oh, so good.
And it's sometimes you get caught. They say it's that saying. My grandma used to say, "You can't see the forest for the trees." You get caught in the grind of it, and you don't see that. God is working things for your good. And if you stay true to your, like you said, your authentic self, and you trust Him, and you listen and follow His guidance, that's what He wants. He doesn't need He doesn't. I said this once. My theological friends may differ on it, but I don't think God needs my help as much as He just needs my obedience.
Right?
Everybody's always going, you got to stand up for God. You know what? Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I think He first of all wants us just to be obedient. And sometimes what He wants us to do, we're like, what? He never asked me to go to Hawaii and do this thing, right?
I'll put my feet in the sand and relax. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I love that, and we can't wait to hear all the songs, including "Save Me," and it's just going to be a good time. I think. I hope to hear it on the radio. So in this last little segment, for those of you that listen a lot, you probably have been like, "Hey, Dave, quit doing this." Well, I kind of forgot. It's a segment we like to call. Well, Stephen calls it the popcorn segment, but it's something we just call rapid fire. So I'm just going to throw out some questions. I swear, and I'm honest. There's nothing here that's going to be scary. But I just want to find out more about Dawn and maybe a little bit, peer behind the curtain of her life. We've already heard that you like to write songs and have a good time when you're in the car. That's cool. So, first of all, tell us, who would you consider your greatest musical influence?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say growing up, I listened to a lot of Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston, Keith Green. My brother loves Keith Green. I have older siblings, so Crystal Lewis was a big one. Oh, yeah. The Clark sisters have such a Stevie Wonder was huge. Brian McKnight. I love R&B music. I love all music.
You like good vocals, good harmonies. Everybody good you name harmony. Just has a voice.
Yeah, it's just like good, timeless music. And I'm hoping that we captured that on this album too. Something that won't just be for right now, but will be for, it'll be timeless. So yeah, those are a lot of mine.
Okay, so switching gears.
I don't know. Pink. I could go on forever. Sorry.
Well, we know we hear you like metal music. You like metal.
I mean, I've done a metal album, so.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So.
You gotta get on that skillet.
She's got Hair Nation on Sirius XM turned up in her car. So I have to know this. This is something we always like to ask: is pizza pineapple or no pineapple?
Now you're gonna get me canceled. Because it's not my first choice, but I do like pineapple on my pizza. I do like I like sweet stuff. So a little Canadian bacon and pineapple.
Canadian bacon and pineapple.
Every once in a while, but mainly just, pepperoni.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite comfort food?
French fries. I love I like French fries. In fact, my husband got me like a pro, fry maker, the one that you see at In-N-Out. I don't know if you guys don't have In-N-Out out there, but but
we love it when we get to have it. And when we went to NRB this year, the National Religious Broadcasters Media Conference, I hit In-N-Out on the way in and out of Dallas.
Nice.
So we had, many months ago, we had Dr. Sam on, and he is a cardiologist out there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but my comfort food is In-N-Out. That's where he likes to go. He said, I put on a sweatshirt and a ball cap so nobody sees the heart doctor. Getting an In-N-Out burger.
So funny. Well, now it's okay because he said it.
Yeah. Well, I think his point would be just don't, you're not going to eat it every meal.
Exactly. So, yeah, I just love fries. Yeah.
Tell me, what is your favorite thing to go and do with your husband, Matt, who is a friend of GEB's and ORU's? What do you guys like to go do? Are you kayakers? Do you hike? Do you walk the dog?
I love adventure. I mean, we travel a lot, and we always, we always try to find new experiences wherever we go. But I would say we really enjoy getting with our Navy SEAL friends and going shooting and doing tactical and combat training. So I'm a little bit of a tomboy. I'm girly girl, but I'm also tomboy. And I'm usually with the boys shooting guns and jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. So
very cool.
Yeah, we'll spend our time, doing tactical and combat training. And just hanging out with family. Matt's Nana is 101. She's going to be 102.
Wow.
And so we love spending time with her. I have 12 nieces and nephews. So, I mean, we just love family. So if we're not traveling and doing something crazy like jumping out of a plane, it's with our family.
I love it. So let everybody know again how they can find you on social and where they'll be able to listen to the album when it comes out in case they've been shared this podcast and tuned in late.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, Life of Dawn Official. And the music will be out on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon. But we'll be launching on Pray.com, which is the biggest. So I'm excited and feel honored. Yes.
And we love the folks that are listening to us every single day on pray.com. Of course, you can go to our page, pray.com/GEB America. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that bell so you'll know about our dropping of a new episode each week. And remember, if you listen on all the other major audio platforms, every single Tuesday we drop a new episode of the GEB America podcast. Be sure to follow us to stay up to date. And if you're commuting, you're driving, and you couldn't write that down in the show notes of the podcast today, you'll see links there for the ways to connect with Dawn and keep tabs on her and her music career. Well, I want to just thank you for coming on. I know that you've got a lot going on, but we always appreciate getting to talk to people and hear their story. I mean, that's one of the great things we try to do here with the podcast is talk to people about great stories of what God has done in their life, because we hope it inspires other people that they'll know that God is not a respecter of persons, and what he can do for you and me, he can do for anyone who believes in him and calls on him. So thank you for coming on and joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah,
And we got to be the first one
Thank you so much.
talking about the new album. So we got to get a little bit of credit when you go on other big shows. Absolutely. You can say, well, no, I'm kidding.
My first. Yes, you
We
are the
appreciate
first. So,
well,
thank you so much. I feel honored and blessed.
And I will be sure for our folks that follow us on our GEB social media, be sure you go to Facebook and Twitter, X, and Instagram. And when Dawn's album releases, we'll definitely post something so you can be notified on there as well. And again, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I'm David Groves. Till we see you next week, be sure that you stay close with God and you stay plugged in to a local church. And we hope you have a great week.